welcome to another episode of Films According to Chris Wyatt presents Sequels Revisited. Today, let's take a look at Clerks 2. The original Clerks was a low-budget independent comedy released in 1994. It was the breakthrough film for writer-director Kevin Smith, who would go on to becoming something of a nerd icon of the 1990s. The film actually found great success among both critics and audiences, though if you're watching it today without context, it might be kind of perplexing as to why. I mean, the acting's kind of flat, the film looks cheap as hell, and even for a first-time director, Kevin Smith has a shockingly limited grasp of basic film aesthetic. Yet, it still appeals to audiences today, myself included, thanks to a quirky tone, Smith's witty dialogue, and an ingrained understanding of the Gen X mindset, in which it both celebrates and critiques. Actually, it almost even plays out like a low-rent Woody Allen comedy, if Woody Allen was into Star Wars and comic books, and didn't know how to frame a shot.
Empire had the better ending. I mean, Luke gets his hand cut off, finds out Vader's his father, hand gets frozen, taken away by Boba Fett. It ends on such a down note. I mean, that's what life is, a series of down endings. All Jedi had was a bunch of Muppets.
Smith followed up Clerks with a series of interconnected comedies throughout the 90s and early 2000s, most of which average out quite well. His 2004 dramedy Jersey Girl, on the other hand, which represented his first attempt at mainstream success and a move from his usual shtick, was panned by critics and largely ignored by audiences, including his typically reliable fan base. After the failure of Jersey Girl, Smith returned to his roots in 2006 with Clerks 2. Clerks 2 now sees Dante and Randall, the convenience store clerks from the first film, now working the fast food scene after the Quick Stop burned down. Also back are the weed-peddling duo Jay and Silent Bob, the mainstays of the universe played by Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith himself. Dante is preparing to move to Florida with his fiancée Emma, much to the chagrin of Randall. However, after a series of mishaps and hijinks, the two start to truly evaluate their situations and attempt to decide what they really want out of life. And in some ways, Clerks 2 is actually a better film than its predecessor. For starters, it had more money at its disposal, hence the fact that they actually can afford color this time, and the production values are slightly higher. The acting is a bit better this time around as well. While nobody here passes as a thespian by any means, Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson have clearly grown in their acting ability, while Rosario Dawson and newcomer Trevor Furman are generally decent. Hughes and Smith are still enjoyably goofy as Jay and Silent Bob as well, while some cameos from Ben Affleck, Jason Lee, and Wanda Sykes are all welcome additions. The script itself plays to many of Smith's strengths. His dialogue is just as creative and profane as ever, with many of the character interactions generally getting some good laughs.
Randall? Let me help you out of your chair, Grandma! Grandma, what was it like to be on the holiday side? Late that night, I awoke from my sleep, hearing unknown voices laughing insane!
The drama, too, again, by no means poignant, is actually better than a film like this has any right for it to be. The whole theme of Dante and Randall coming to terms with who they are and whether they're living their lives based on what they want or society's expectations works. Actually, a lot of people interpret this as Smith himself accepting who he is as a filmmaker and where his strengths lie. Some might see that as kind of sad, but at least it's honest. And I respect Smith for making such a statement. At least I would if he didn't keep trying to prove himself with bizarre and increasingly stupid films. But we'll save that discussion for another day. Most of what I've said so far about Clerks 2 is actually quite positive, and I know I'm not alone in those sentiments. So, is it even really fair to call this a hated sequel? Well, kinda. I mean, it does have a fan base like most of Smith's films. It's just that those who dislike this movie often really dislike it. And there is a reason for that. Yeah, the infamous donkey scene is by far the most criticized part of this film. And, you know, I'm trying to keep the content of the show somewhat family-friendly, so I'm not going to go into too many details about that, but whatever you're thinking it is, you are probably right. So yeah, the donkey scene might be the worst thing Smith has ever done. Well, almost anyways. And the film would have benefited from anything else. Still, a lot of what's here works. Quite well, actually. So, underrated sequel? I don't know if I would go as far to say that Clerks 2 is an underrated sequel. Like many of Smith's films, you're either going to be pro-Smith or anti-Smith, with very few people in the middle, and Clerks 2 is no exception. Personally, I think despite one very massively misguided scene, the movie is decent, and I'm glad I saw it. If nothing else, it's probably the last decent thing Smith has done in the last 8 years, so there's always that. I'm holding out for a comeback one day, but it hasn't happened yet.
Have a good one.
Freak.
Alright, thank you so much for watching Films According to Chris Wyatt. What'd you think of Clerks 2? Was it an underrated sequel, or was that donkey scene just way too much? Let me know in the comments. And if you liked what you saw and you want to see more, go ahead and click subscribe and tune in every Monday for a new video. See you next time.
Chewbacca!